Prisons are tough, that's a given, but some take it to a whole new level, especially for a specific kind of criminal, child predators. Today, we're looking at prisons where the conditions are so brutal that some might say they're worse than death itself. There's also no rehabilitation here. These prisons are designed to punish, to break, to make these monsters suffer. Let's take a look at 3 of the world's most horrific predator prisons. Attica Correctional Facility. Attica Correctional Facility is one of those places that has a reputation far beyond the walls that contain it. Located in upstate New York, it's a maximum security prison that's become infamous not just for the brutal riot that took place there in 1971, but for the harsh conditions that inmates endure every day. And when you consider the kind of people who are sent there, like Roy Harriger, you start to understand why Attica is often described as a place that's worse than death. Pastor Roy Harriger was a man who once held a position of trust and respect. He was a pastor in a small community in upstate New York, and people looked up to him. But then, in 2014, it all came crashing down when he was convicted of sexually abusing his own grandchildren. The case shocked everyone because, he was supposed to be a man of God. But instead of guiding and protecting, he was doing the exact opposite. He ended up getting 15 years in prison for his crimes, and Attica was where he was sent. So, let's talk about what life was like for someone like Harriger in Attica. First off, as expected, the conditions in this prison are tough, even by maximum security standards. Inmates are kept in line by correctional officers, COs, who have a reputation for making their own rules. For example, inmates are only allowed to shower twice a week. That's less than what you'd get in other maximum security prisons. And if you think that sounds rough, it's just the tip of the iceberg. The COs often engage in random and humiliating frisks, and there's a constant atmosphere of intimidation. Inmates have to walk through corridors with guards trailing behind them, batons in hand, ready to use them at the slightest provocation. What's even more chilling is the way discipline is handled. The prison is divided into several cell blocks, and the action, meaning the confrontations between inmates and COs, usually goes down in the corridors or the yards. If an inmate steps out of line, they might find themselves the target of what's called a beatdown crew, coordinated attacks where the inmate is beaten severely, often in areas out of sight of cameras or other inmates. Inmates are forced to live in close quarters with others who are just as dangerous, if not more so than they are. And for someone like Roy, who was already despised, the risk of violence was always present. On May 15, 2013, Roy Harriger's life took a dark and irreversible turn. While attending what should have been a routine orientation class, the prison suddenly plunged into lockdown, a moment that would shatter any remaining sense of security he had. In the midst of the chaos, Harriger was offered protective custody, a gesture that was supposed to shield him from harm. But instead of protection, it became the prelude to a nightmare. As a correctional officer led him through the cold, unyielding corridors of Attica, Harriger was violently thrust against a wall. His head collided with the unforgiving surface, and he was commanded to remain in that degrading position for 15 agonizing minutes. It was an order that served no purpose but to strip him of his dignity and leave him disoriented, a twisted display of power. But the torment didn't end there. As Harriger was being taken back to his cell, the brutality escalated. He was struck twice in the back of the neck, the blows so vicious that they sent him crashing to the ground, unconscious. When he awoke, the damage was done. His body betrayed him with right-side paralysis. His face drooped, and his speech was slurred beyond recognition. The attack had left him confined to a wheelchair. From that day forward, Harriger's existence in Attica became even more harrowing. He was a man crippled by violence, vulnerable in a place where vulnerability is a death sentence. The constant threat of further attacks, the physical limitations that now defined him, and the overwhelming knowledge that he was despised by everyone around him turned his life into a ceaseless nightmare. Harriger fought back in the only way he could, through the courts. He sued the prison and was awarded $2 million in compensation. Yet life in Attica for a man like Harriger remained anything but merciful. Butyrka Prison. Imagine being sent to a place so notorious, so feared, that just the thought of it sends chills down your spine. That's exactly what happened to Valery Arsatyan, a man whose crimes were so vile that his eventual destination was almost inevitable: Butyrka Prison in Moscow. So, what's Butyrka like? Well, to put it simply, it's a nightmare. Overcrowding is a massive issue. There are often more than 2,200 inmates crammed into a facility designed for far fewer. The cells are cramped, often so full that prisoners have to take turns sleeping sleeping on the floor. The conditions are dreadful, with poor sanitation, minimal medical care, and a heating system that barely works, leaving prisoners to freeze in the harsh Russian winters. Imagine being sick and knowing that the chances of getting proper treatment are slim to none. That's everyday life in Butyrka. And for someone like Arsatyan, the situation was even worse. Convicted of raping and murdering young girls, he was despised not just by the outside world, but by his fellow inmates as well. You see, in Russian prisons, crimes against children are seen as the lowest of the low, and those convicted often face the harshest treatment. Arsatyan knew this, and the fear of what might happen to him inside those walls was almost as terrifying as the death sentence he was given. As expected, Arsatyan didn't survive long in Butyrka. He was executed by firing squad in 1996, his time in the prison marked by isolation, fear, and the relentless harshness of a place that seemed almost designed to punish him before his official sentence was carried out. Black Dolphin Prison. Last but not least is the Black Dolphin, a place beyond what you'd imagine when you think of a prison. It's where they send the absolute worst criminals, people who have done things so awful that society just can't let them be around others anymore. We're talking about serial killers, cannibals, terrorists, and yes, even child predators. The prison itself is located near the Kazakhstan border, and it houses about 700 inmates. The thing that's really shocking is that together, these prisoners have killed about 3,500 people. That's an average of 5 murders per person. But the scariest part isn't even the crimes these people committed. It's actually the way they're treated inside. So there's no such thing as privacy. Every single second of every day you're being watched. There are cameras everywhere, and guards check on you constantly, every 15 minutes to be exact. And the cells? They're tiny. 2 people have to share a 50-square-foot space, and it's not just one door that separates them from the outside world. There are 3 layers of steel doors. And here's the really crazy part. When the guards move inmates from one place to another, the latter are forced to bend over at the waist with their hands cuffed behind their backs, blindfolded. The real reason for this is to completely disorient the prisoners. They are never allowed to get familiar with the prison's layout. It's psychological warfare at its finest, designed to strip away any sense of hope or control. The daily life in Black Dolphin is as rough as it gets. Prisoners are woken up at 6 a.m., and from that moment, they are not allowed to sit or lie down on their beds for the next 16 hours. That's right, 16 hours of standing or pacing in a tiny cell. And when it's time for exercise, don't think of it as a break. Exercise here means pacing back and forth in another cell, not in an open yard. There's no fresh air, no sunlight, just the cold, harsh reality of the concrete walls surrounding them. Meals are another bleak aspect of life in Black Dolphin. There's no cafeteria. Inmates eat their meals, usually soup and bread, inside their cells. The food is as bare bones as it gets, providing just enough nutrition to keep them alive, but certainly not enough to bring any comfort or satisfaction. The guards play an even bigger role in making sure life in Black Dolphin is as harsh as possible. They're known for being ruthless, and their routines are as strict as they are cruel. They check every nook and cranny of the cells during exercise time, looking for any contraband or signs of an escape plan. One lieutenant famously said that the only way to leave Black Dolphin is by dying, and he wasn't exaggerating. No one has ever escaped from this place, and the entire system is designed to make sure of that. If you enjoyed this video, you should click on the ones displayed on your screen to enjoy more content. See you next time.